Good evening, my friends. This is Eric McCool of Permagora Live. It is October 5th today, and I have been thinking about some things that I'm going to share with y'all. It's been several days of calm, reflective thinking. I've had the house to myself, and I've been doing lots of reading and lots of visioning for what it is I'm trying to say, because this is hard, y'all. Like, I can talk a lot and I got words, but what I'm trying to describe is huge and very difficult to describe. What I'm trying to advocate, it's not some simplistic, oh, well, all we got to do is da da da. It's like, this is complicated. There's a lot we have to do. And how to frame it, how to structure it in a way that we can all see what we're talking about and dealing with is the challenge. And I'm working on it. I've got some plans, I've got some ideas of how I can get this into a more cohesive body of work. And yeah, it's a slow work in progress. I've been going through a lot in my personal life and have been working through that stuff and making some big decisions and feeling like part of the decision that's being made is that I need to put more effort and time into this work, where I'm offering to the world, I hope, optimistic outlook and encouragement to do these simple things that can really change the world and can really help things get better for everybody. And there are some simple things. I can't explain it in a real short, simplistic way, but I mean, there is some basic formula here that hasn't ever really been that well articulated. And there's lots of people who are doing a good job out there, but there's no official articulation of this idea. There's no go-to resource for what it means or how it should be accomplished. So I'm thinking about these things and writing about them, and mainly I'm studying right now. I was humbled a little bit by something Michael Tessarian said in an interview about this being holy work, the search for truth and the search for understanding of the story we're living in. And we're up against very dangerous, powerful people who don't want us to speak the truth, and they cover the world in lies to make us seem crazy or to make us not be seen at all. And the holy work is to be armored with truth, with real information that can be found in indisputable, or at least more or less, fact of history, right? Like there's theories, there's ideas, and there's some unsubstantiated but pretty suspicious things. And then there's stuff that's just, there's no debating this. And this is really, I think, part of the process of how we have to heal this world, is we have to get better at making it completely obvious who the perpetrators of the problems we're living in now are. There are perpetrators. There are guilty parties that are at large. They're still getting away with it, and they must be stopped. And so we're looking at a world in which a lot of people know that, and a lot of people are ready to stop them, but how do you do it is the question. One of the books I've been studying, and I've pointed this out before, this is Fletcher Prouty's JFK. It's taken me a long time to read it because I'm reading a lot of other things as well, but wow. Kennedy was trying to stop it. He saw it. He was not a nobody. He had some political power, and he had friends, and he had a lot going for him, and he went up against this agenda, which has been unfolding long before he came to power and is still unfolding now. And he did his best to expose it. And it's an interesting thing. 35th president. 10 presidents later, we're on the 45th, and we seem to have a similar situation where there's a president just living in complete defiance of the status quo powers that be, we might call them, and just does things his way. And in a way, his popularity reminds me of Kennedy. People worship him. They don't just think, oh, I support him. It's like, people love this guy. And I know people equally hate him, but there's something interesting going on here. And Kennedy was killed shortly before his second term. He was given to win it. Like, it was looking pretty clear he was going to win it. And, or maybe he already had. I can't even remember now, because he was killed in November. But it was November of 63. It wasn't the election year yet. That's right. So anyway, I don't want to go too deep into that. I'm just saying that this is a big thing we're up against, and we have to be organized. We have to know our facts. We have to have really, really good warriors of truth who can get out there and who can shut down people who use these lies and these manipulations and these tactics that we've studied, and we know what they're doing. We know how their fact checking, debunking system works. It's just pure propaganda. It's cheap parlor tricks, and anyone with any sense of things can be shown how that's the case. You just have to look. You have to brace yourself for the possibility and look. But regardless, we're in an interesting time right now because there's so much going on in the world that is not believable. You really just don't know what to believe and who to believe. And there's just, Daniel Schmachtenberger calls it the war on sense-making, or the pollution of the information ecology. It's a pollution. Just like the rivers are polluted, so is the information, so is the process by which we all live. And in an earlier discussion, I talked about abolition of the government as being a possible solution here, wherein we wipe all of this away and say, look, this whole thing is messed up and we need to redesign it. And we can do that consciously with the greatest minds being put to work, and may the greatest ideas win. May the best solution to the problem of what about this and what about that, right? Like taking away our current government leads people to fear that there'll be chaos and that all the things the government does won't get done. And it's really about removing their capacity to use force against people that don't comply with them. The only time force is legitimate is when it's in defense of life or property, and aggressive use of force is forbidden. And if it's not using force aggressively, it's not really a government. So we do need to abolish government, and we need to reinstitute something that is more like a community process. Maybe globally at some level, but primarily more locally. We need to start there because it's easier. But we have this process whereby we can make decisions collectively, and there's a lot of different ways to do it, but it's got to be voluntary. That's the real hard part for people to grasp, is that they don't just get to send police to arrest people who break laws that they write. People don't write laws. There's no laws to be written. All there are agreements. Laws imply an imbalance of power, an imbalance of the ability to use force, right? If you pass a law, you're implying by calling a law that you've got the power to come and get people who don't obey, right? It's a hierarchical arrangement, and we are the subordinates. We, the people, who are supposedly the bosses of this government, we're the subordinates of the imbalance of the power hierarchy. And so when we're talking about changing government, what we're really talking about is changing law from statutory, bureaucratically controlled law as connected to court, as connected to judicial process and various languages, the whole Black's dictionary, whole different language set, whole different meanings for words. You might even call it a cult, right? There are rituals, there are all sorts of requirements. It's a very, very unusual world, the world of law. And it's got to go, to be perfectly frank. There's plenty of aspects of it that will transfer into the new thing that we're going to build. But so much of that is just complete dissembly. It's just complete trickery, right? And I'm going to get into that with the courtrooms, and how they're essentially a magical ritual, and they're meant to fool people into affirming the people's delusional belief in this authority structure, this group of people that get to call themselves law and get to use law as their excuse for initiating violence. And this is a cult of people who have been doing this, or they're descended from and connected to people who have been doing this for thousands and thousands of years. They're just gangsters, people, okay? So we're learning that. Humanity's waking up to that fact, and we don't have to let them rule us because they don't have the manpower to keep us all under control. They're relying on us continuing to believe in their facade, in their charade. And the more we participate in it, the more we take it seriously, the more they win, and the more power over us they have, to the point where they can come and seize your home using this alleged system of law just because you've done something that they don't like. For instance, you didn't pay them money that they say you owed them via taxation, or because you broke some law that they wrote, like saying whether or not you have certain plants in your garden or certain cacti in your indoor garden, right? There's reasons they have that are completely ridiculous if you look at them at face value. Oh, you're going to break down my house and maybe shoot my dog and maybe even shoot me because I've got a plant in here? That's absurd. The only reason the American people bought that was because it was propagandized. They were tricked into accepting it, believing that it was for the good. It's protection against all the bad things that this brings. And, they know how to trick people. Edward Bernays had studied Gustave Le Bon, and these ways of understanding human psychology were weaponized early on in the birth of human psychology. And it's very clear once you study it what has happened and what is going on. And once you've studied these things and you look at the news cycles and you look at the press conferences and just the various forms of theater with a stage, mind you, and lighting and makeup and directors, presumably, right? Like, this is all theater. And they're manipulating people into believing in the legitimacy of these gangster mafioso organizations that run guns and run drugs and run children and people and do all of this stuff, often under color of law, with a badge, right? Where they can get away with it because they've got permission from the people at the top. And so we got to get these parasites out. And I'm not talking by voting them out. Well, actually I am in a way, but not by voting in a poll, in a vote booth, right? That's not where you vote. You vote with your voice, you vote with your purchases, with your money, and you vote with your actions and your associations. With whom do you associate? These are all the true volition that we as people possess. We have this power to choose what to pay attention to and to choose what to buy. Okay? So that's what we ought to be voting with. And we have to be voting against all of this theater, all of this ridiculous puppetry that's going on, trying to convince us that any of these candidates are actually looking out for our good, as if we haven't seen enough. All right? So I'm just appalled that people are still watching this channel, watching this ridiculous pageantry. But they are. And it's hard for them to let it go. I try to have compassion and understanding. I try not to be too much of a bursting their bubble, rain on their parade, telling them that Santa Claus isn't real kind of guy. But guess what, kids? Santa Claus isn't real, and the government isn't legitimate. They have no authority over us. We are the authority. We are sovereign. We are the ones who choose what happens with our bodies, with our minds, and with our words. And if we don't take that power seriously, it will be co-opted by the likes of these jackfaces, these guys who don't even care about the deaths they cause or the environmental destruction they wreak on the planet. They are clearly, I don't want to say lost, but I don't know what to do for those kind of people. All I know is we should stop giving them our money. We should stop giving them our attention. We should stop following the mandates that they put forward for us, as if they have the right to tell us what to do. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I guess I'm a little bit more revolutionary and resistant to authority than most people by nature, but I was raised in America, in the old America, the pre-9/11 America, and boy, was it a different place, kiddos, today. People believed in freedom. People loved the freedoms that we had here, and they celebrated them, and they always talked tough about how they were never going to give them up to no commies or to anyone else, terrorists or anybody, right? Like, this was something that was a big part of American culture. And I always rolled my eyes at it, thinking, oh yeah, freedom, we're free here, kind of, while everyone else in the world is suffering under our imperial reign, which is true, and I wasn't wrong, but I was disdainful of the whole process because it struck me as being shallow and also kind of deifying of the state, kind of the government is the greatest superstition, most dangerous superstition. Another book I was getting into a little bit today, Love Larkin Rose and his cutting right to the heart of the matter. But yeah, I mean, this country used to be more free. I mean, it's been eroding slowly over time. I mean, the income tax happened and licensing happened, the passports. World War II took away a lot of freedoms because they're like, oh, the emergency of the war, we gotta ration food and all this stuff. But then instead of giving all the freedoms back, they gave back all these new privileges like the consumer culture, right, of the cars and the fast food and the movies and just money. Everyone was making good money. They bribed the middle class of America into the scheme, in a way. And they created a belief in this prosperity, and it made sense, and people did make money and get to retire and have one career, one life, one partner working, other partner stays home. That was all possible, and it was a great thing for those that it worked for. And people really believed in that, and it's strange to me how quickly they gave all that up over the last 2 decades. And 9/11 was a big blow when they introduced the TSA and they did the Patriot Act, and they revealed later that the government was spying on us all, even though everyone swore that was just a conspiracy theory, and it was just sort of like, I guess that sucks. That's a shame on those government people, but what are you gonna do? Like, people didn't care. The world was still going well enough to where most people, even once they knew, didn't really change much. They just sort of felt superior for knowing and went around and either made fools of themselves or maybe made some serious impacts on people's lives with their discourse by speaking the truth, speaking what they'd learned. But the truth is, it didn't seem to matter very much to the world, even once they knew that the government was killing. Like, it wasn't even a secret that we had to try and leak that 90% of the drone strikes they did in Afghanistan or in the Middle East in general were killing civilians. 90%. People are just like, what are you gonna do? We gotta fight terrorism, right? Like ISIS, right? Who are they now? Which group are we fighting now? Oh, where did those groups get their training and their money and their equipment? Who started all this? Operation Gladio, Central Intelligence Agency. Have y'all studied these organizations? Do you know what they've done? Like, this is all a matter of public record. The things going on in America right now are right out of the playbook. Like, we've seen this before. This is a coup. This is a takedown. This is a hostile takeover by the international cabal of what remains of our republic. When Kennedy was killed, our republic was basically, that was a coup in and of itself. It was a takeover at a certain level to a certain extent. And over the years, they've been chipping away at what remains, and this is a big jump in that direction of more control by the central system, far less control by the local or by the state or by the people's vote, right? Like, all of this democracy thing, it's clearly not being taken seriously by anybody. Or it is, but not to the extent that they care about all of the malfeasances that we see happen in it, that they actually stand up and say, well, wait a minute, we can't proceed. This can't proceed until we fix this. There's so many things like that within the system that we mostly know about. The corruption, the loopholes in the law, and the reality that law is basically a function of money, like the legal system. If you have enough money, you can get away with most things. And if you don't, you're more likely to just be a victim, a ward of the state, like so many people in this country locked up in prisons. Biggest prison population on the planet, in the land of the free. I mean, come on, y'all. We've known about this. How are we still sitting here as if things are okay? I think they're not okay. And I'm not a doomsday person, but I think we're going through some very hard times in the future because of our negligence to act on this earlier. But we're acting now. We must act now. And we're going to move ahead. And we've got a plan, okay? There are people that are making good plans. And we just have to make sure that the best plans and the best voices get heard and seen the most, which means we've got to help people tune out all of the mainstream. If you're listening to stuff that's got huge funding, or if you're participating in organizations that are very powerful and have lots of money, or if your causes are being endorsed by these organizations and they're plastering the slogans all over the place, you need to be very careful. You need to be wary, because the money in this world, for the most part, is not supportive of what I'm talking about. This is a grassroots people's thing. The people have to do this, and it means we have to tune those people out and stop inviting them to the parties. The people that are going to extort our earth and our brothers and sisters in the other parts of the world, and the animals, people that are just going to treat life as a commodity to be cashed in on, trying to, it's tragic. It's the idea of slavery. It's the idea of pyramid hierarchy. A king who takes all the benefits while others toil and die for him. Like, that is a myth. That is an ancient part of our history and heritage that we must now out-evolve. And that's what the liberty movement is all about. No rulers, no masters, no slaves. We aren't slaves, but if we want to be free, we have to act free, which means we have to take responsibility for ourselves, take responsibility for our needs. And that means redesigning everything. We're redesigning our food production, we're redesigning our material production, our manufacturing, we're redesigning our transportation systems, we're redesigning our energy systems. All of this stuff we can redesign, and we've got good places to start with. It's not like everything about it's bad, but there's so much that could be changed and fixed, and it's going to be a lot of work to do it. So we need all hands on deck. We need all able-minded, good-hearted people to come forward and say, I want to help. I want to do something about these problems. So let's do something about these problems, my friends. That's what this channel is all about. Come on to the channel and talk with me. I've been saying this forever, but I know not very many people are listening to this at this point. That's fine. I'm not really promoting it. I'm barely even doing it. I'm busy. And I'm getting some stuff handled and finished. And it's good. It's good. I'm coming back here, slowly but surely. So anyhow, I want to talk to people who have ideas. I want to debate people who disagree with me. I don't care what you got to say, as long as we're going to have a good discourse where we're both going to learn something and we're both going to continue to work towards making sense of this, then I'm all ears. And also, I've got some stuff to share with you. I've got some presentations to give and some things to look at and talk about. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of that, and I will wrap this up now. But I'll be making some more videos very soon, and hope to continue this conversation with all of you, my good friends. Be well.